Hey, computer scientists. A couple of you requested a video about loops. So I want to explain them as best as I can. So this is a website called Replit, replit.com. Built-in IDE, super easy to share and work together and publish stuff. And if you've never tried it out, definitely you should do so. So the first thing I want to talk about is for loops. And for loops are used for when you know the number of times you want to go through your loop. So those are called iterations, right? One iteration is one time through the loop. So if you know, like if you're counting from 1 to 10, you know how many times you're going to go through the loop, right? If you have a bunch of things in a list and you want to like look for something in the list, you still know like the maximum number of times you're going to go through your list, right? If you're looking for something in a list, because you just go through them all one at a time. So those are kind of what you would use a for loop for. So let me write that down. Okay, so there's my little explanation. And then while loops, the easiest way to think about while loops is just replace the word while with as long as. So a while loop is used in something like when you're asking someone for their password, right? So you have an input that you store in a variable, and as long as that input does not equal the correct password, ask for new input, right? You don't know how many times it's going to take them. They could get it right on the first try. It could take them 1,000 tries, or 7 tries, or 20 tries. Like, you just don't know. So as long as it's not correct, you want to keep asking, right? Different than for loops where you know exactly how many times something's going to happen. So I'm going to write that down here too. All right. So we've got our sort of general explanation here. So let's go through some examples. So the most common way you use for loops is with something called a range. And that is worth its own explanation. So what is a range? Basically what Python does is it gives you this magic tool called range that creates a list of numbers for you. So the for loop always is going through a list one at a time. If you say range, then it's a list of numbers, right? So I'll give you the most common example here. For I in range 10, print I. Okay? So if we do this, it'll print the numbers 0 to 9, which is, you know, kind of ridiculous, but that's okay. Okay, so I click run, and as you can see, 0 to 9. So why 0 to 9? Well, in most programming languages, things start at 0. And range, by default here, starts at 0. If I don't specify a different starting number, so I can say from like 5 to 10 if I wanted to, right? And it starts at 5 instead of 0. If I don't specify, right, it creates this list starting at 0. And just by definition, it means stop before 10. Right? So it's like up to but not including whatever number that is. So you still get 10 numbers. So you can think of it that way. You have to remember it starts at 0. So what this is really doing, right, what this range, this amazing range word is actually doing behind the scenes, right, is it's actually doing this. It's creating a list up to 9 for you. That's all that range does. So if I said, range from 5 to 11, right, it would start at 5 and go up to, but not including 11. It's exactly the same thing as just creating a list, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The nice thing is, say you have a list, a range of like 1,000 numbers, you don't want to have to type in that whole list. So that's why we use the word range, right? So if I said range from, 1 to 101, what do you think that would print out? Hopefully you would think the numbers from 1 to 100, not all the way up to 101. All right, so if I do that, you can see it goes up to 100, but not including 101. All right, so that's what it does. That's what a for loop does. It goes through a list, one item at a time, right? So range gives you a list of numbers, but you could also just as easily make it, apple, banana. Whoop, I know how to spell banana. Banana, orange, right? You can make it a list of, whatever you want, and it'll still work, right? So it puts this, whatever's in your list, one at a time in this variable I that you can then use in your loop. So all I'm doing here is printing I. So it's sticking each one of these things in the list into that variable each time it goes through the loop. And range does the same thing, right? So say here, another example. Say I wanted to sum the numbers from 1 to 100, right? So what should I put in my range? Should I do a range up to 100? No, that'll give me 0 to 99, right? So 1 stopping at 101, not including 101. So I'm going to say sum equals 0, and I'm going to say sum equals sum plus I. Oops, plus I. And then at the end, I will print the sum. Another nice thing about this Replit IDE is, it'll give you hints on stuff like range. Little reminders of how they work. So anyway, all right. So I run this program, and 5,050 here is the sum of all the numbers from 1 to 100. And how do we know that? Because 1 plus 99 is 100, 2 plus 98, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can just add them up. So you have 50 100s plus 50 in the middle. Cool. All right, so while loops now. Oh, I forgot 0 plus 100 there. Anyway, while loops, as I mentioned before, you don't know how many times they're going to execute. So you need an as long as. So I'm going to do this password thing, right? So I'm going to say the password is pizza. I don't know, I'm just going to put that. So I'm going to say the guess equals input. What is the password? Right? And then if password equals the guess. Oh, I don't need these parentheses in Python. Then print, you got it right. Else, print, you got it. Oh, what happened there? You got it wrong. Sad face. All right, so let's run it. It says, what is the password? I'm going to guess something ridiculous. You got it wrong. What is the password? I'm going to type in pizza. You got it right. So that's great, except what if I just said pizza with a capital P? I got it wrong. I don't log in. I have to run my whole program again because I forgot it was a lowercase p. What I really want to do is keep asking until they get it right. Obviously, this is not like a real way you would do a secure password. I'm just trying to give you an example. So if I did a for loop, right, then it doesn't really make sense. Like, how many times should I ask? There's no range. There's no list. There's not. It doesn't it doesn't make sense to use a for loop. What I really want to do is, as long as the guess is wrong, keep asking. Okay? So what I really want to do, instead of if password equals guess, what I really want to do is say while guess does not equal password, right, print you got it wrong. And then I have to get new input, right? Guess equals input. Try again. I don't know how to make it obvious, but anyway, so I'm just gonna get new input and store it in that guess variable, right? So what this says is get input from the user. What is the password? If the guess does not equal the password, print you got it wrong and try again. Store that in guess. If the guess is still not equal to the password, print you got it wrong, input try again. So as long as guess does not equal password, it's going to keep doing these two lines. It's going to print you got it wrong and let them input it again. The only way to get out of this while loop here is if guess does equal password, then this little thing here isn't true anymore. It's not true that guess doesn't equal password. So if guess does equal password, then the while loop ends and you end up down here at the bottom and you can print, congratulations, you guessed it. Happy face. Okay, so let's run this program. What is the password? I say ASDF. You got it wrong. Try again. Whir, you got it wrong. Right? So as long as I don't type in pizza, right, it's going to keep asking me. If I type in pizza, it says, congratulations, you guessed it. So even if I do that on the first try, right, what is the password? Pizza, it will skip over the whole while loop because it only does it if guess does not equal password. So I hope this helps explain for loops and while loops a little bit. If you want more extensive examples, I'm happy to do that. Or if you want specific examples, those are always good. If you find some code you don't understand, happy to explain it. Yeah, just let me know. All right. Thanks.